We are live in 5, 4, 3. You know the rest. Welcome to the Creator Series, where I talk to folks creating music to find out how they do it and what tips they can share with you. In this one, I'll be chatting with an amazing person. She's a singer, musician, producer, and founder of MPW, a music production community for women. Please welcome to Studio Live today, Xylo Aria. How are you doing today, Xylo?
Great, Pete. Great to be here and nice and early for me and you.
Yeah, thank you for being here early. We're both here in Australia, and it is early, so it's breakfast time here in Australia. If you're joining us from the civilized parts of the world where it's probably the afternoon and the evening, hello, and welcome to the show. To kick us off here, what I'd like to do is learn a little bit and to help the viewers here know about you and your music, what I call the music origin story. So what got you into this fang-dangled music stuff that we all love so much?
Lovely. Yeah, sure. So yeah, I mean, I started as a singer-songwriter, and before that, I was kind of introduced to music from my grandmother, and she taught me very traditional kind of Indian music. And for a really long time growing up, I hated my voice. I didn't understand like why people kind of told me I had a good voice. But then, you're young and slowly your kind of confidence builds. And then I was like, all right, maybe I should kind of give this a shot. And I started, writing music when I was about 12. And and then I just started, in my high school. It was a pretty musical high school, I think, and I found a few other friends doing similar things and writing music and kind of starting out in production and that kind of thing, and it was really fun. Like we just kind of started helping each other out to make music, and then kind of did that, kept creating for a while, and then finished school, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Because I didn't really know how to make music a career. So then I studied accounting. So did something totally different. I loved maths, but I wasn't really excited about accounting. I just didn't know what else to do. And it's funny, I kind of feel like anyone that ends up in a business degree are people that don't know what to do. But anyway, so I was kind of there, and then ended up working in accounting and like being in a really corporate setting. And then I was like, oh my gosh, suddenly I just came to a point where I'm like, this is not really in line with who I am. And then kind of I was making music this whole time, and I was like, you know what, I need to make a drastic change. And then something about the UK really appealed to me, and especially because a lot of the artists that I love, like James Blake and FKA Twigs and all that kind of that genre of people seemed to be there. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna quit my job and just go to the UK. And I had no real plan, and then I did that, and then rocked up in London with like a suitcase and checked into a hostel, and was like, right, I got to make this work somehow. But there, I don't know, I think it's something about being somewhere where you don't know anyone, where you just throw yourself into everything. So I went to every single music networking event I could find, and slowly started getting gigs in kind of London and around London, and did a few collaborations, met some incredible musicians, and released a few collaborations, and there I really started kind of producing for myself and taking that on as a more serious thing. And then, looking out into the world, I was like, why are there no female producers? And then I really wanted to kind of help change that. So then launched MPW while I was there. It was just such an incredible opportunity. Got to work with some amazing music companies, and out of some incredible studios like Abbey Road Studios, which was a dream.
Oh, wow.
And it was amazing. So and then now I'm back to Australia and trying to kind of keep everything going, which is now all online anyway, so it's all fine. So lots of different places being, I think.
Yeah, that's I mean, it's amazing, and I think it's a journey that a lot of folks can relate to, and a lot of people are probably nodding along, saying, "Yeah, having to work the day job, live in the corporate
Yeah,
world, still have the music dream." And I know for me it was similar, and for many folks it's similar. It's how do you balance the passion for music and paying the mortgage and the bills at the same time? It could be a challenge for a lot of people.
yeah.
So was your grandma, you say, was an influence early on with your
Mhm,
musical creation, and
mhm.
starting to create music. What got you into the whole like? Because I think when you started out, just looking at sort of your past history here, you started sort of more in the singing side and working with producers, and then producing your music. What
Yeah.
made that light go off in your head to say, "Hang on, I can probably do this myself"?
Well, to be honest, I was always working with, producers who were men. And unfortunately, some people have really good experiences. I did not exactly, and after kind of being in these situations too many times, I was like, you know what, I just need to take this into my own hands and take control of it. And unfortunately, it wasn't out of like oh, this looks fun, I want to try that. It was out of I really don't want to do this, but I don't see any other option. And that was kind of the only way out. So, but you know what? Like everything, I really do believe happens for a reason. And I think maybe if I didn't get to that last straw place, I wouldn't have jumped into this. And it's now become such a big part of my life, production, and is such a big part of my kind of musical career, producing and now kind of teaching that in different spaces. So yeah, that was kind of the start of it.
I do love that because it's so refreshing, because you actually usually hear the opposite story. You usually hear people that start out recording themselves and getting into home production, and then there's this real myth that once you get a producer, once you get a record deal, once you're working in a big studio, that's when things happen. And it's actually super refreshing to hear the opposite, that sometimes it is actually better to have control and to have your own voice and your own say in the production of your music. So again, I think
Mm.
a lot of folks can relate to that. And for the record, by the way, check out Xylo's music, linked down in the description. You will not be disappointed. Very, very, very cool, ambient, just really cool tracks. And for the record, I've listened to the stuff that you produced yourself, and I've listened to the stuff that was produced by others, and I like your stuff significantly better. So, I was listening this morning and just
Amazing.
going, there's some really cool tracks. A track called Pig that I was listening to this morning that you have to check out. It's amazing. So jump
Oh.
down in the description, check that out. In fact, we'll just show this one. This is there's a link there to the Song Whip link, so you can go and check out Xylo's EP called Ignorance. You can check it out on all the usual platforms there. So jump down in the description and make sure you're following Xylo and all the work that she's doing there and creating. But it is time to get nerdy, because the audience here likes to hear not only the what you do, but the how you do it. And
Yeah.
you're a big Ableton user, I believe, from doing my research here. So my normal question is, what do you use primarily to create music? Do you want to take us through what your setup is and how you get your music created?
Definitely, definitely. So, yes, I'm a big Ableton fan, and yeah, talking about other DAWs make me feel like I'm cheating on Ableton. So I just kind of I love it so much, and it's kind of where I started my production journey. Like I was around other softwares a lot when I was working with other producers, like Logic and that kind of thing. And actually, no, I lie. I first started on Fruity Loops years ago, and I really like the kind of drum sequencer, which like lights up little bulbs and stuff. But then kind of when I got into it more seriously in a way, but I don't know. I've been hearing the name Ableton a lot, and something about it really appealed to me. And the people that said once you get past the initial like what is going on, because it does look a little bit different to other DAWs, they were saying it's quite intuitive and that kind of thing, and that's what I did find as well. And now it just, yeah, it does what I need it to do. And especially when you want to play live, you really I don't know, at the moment it's definitely the market leader, if you will, on live playing music. And I know Logic have recently come up with a update which looks weirdly similar to Ableton as far as a live performance goes. So that's something that I really needed and was important to me. So Ableton was a big thing for that. And to be honest, when I first started, it was a really simple setup, and I still use that a lot. Like I didn't even have an interface. Like I just had my laptop and I had a USB mic, which was the Audio 2020, Audio Technica 2020, and really nice mic for the price, and it does a great job. So then I was kind of using that. I didn't have any MIDI controllers or anything like that. I was just using my laptop as a MIDI input, which worked well. And I still do that sometimes when I just kind of want to change things around and I don't feel like, maybe I'm sitting in my bed and I don't want to take my MIDI controller with me and I'm just kind of having a play around. So I think, and now I have, a few monitors and stuff. So I have the Yamaha HS7s, which I love, and I have a few different MIDI controllers. I really like Novation, so I've got the Novation Launch Key 25, 49 and 61, so I have a few of those, and the launch pad as well, and I have an audio interface, the Audient ID14, nice, which I really like as well, and a few different microphones and stuff. But like, I think you don't really need much, and you're a great preacher of this, Pete, but you can you can use whatever you have to start making music. Whether it's GarageBand or whatever it is that you have available to you, and start there and add things as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's actually some similarity. I mean, I get so confused by Ableton. I'm glad you said that once you get over that, because the couple of times people use, and even watching you, there was a video that you did for Novation, and I'm just watching you performing with it and going, wow, like I'm so lost, but it looks so cool. And I need to work out how that all works. But, and again, it's the same with GarageBand. And like you say, GarageBand and now Logic have the live loops feature, which uses similar kinds of things to what Ableton's been doing for many, many years. So yeah, it really is true that start out, and people will have probably said to you, why do you use Ableton? Why don't you use Pro Tools? Pro Tools is the industry standard. And obviously for my audience here, a lot of us use GarageBand and Logic and other platforms. And a lot of people say the same thing to us. Why do you use that? And I think it just comes down to your workflow. And it sounds like your workflow and Ableton just go together so nicely that it helps you produce your best music. And why would you not use the thing that makes your best music?
Exactly. And like, even though I'm such a big kind of fan of Ableton, it's really whatever you feel comfortable with. At the end of the day, it's just a tool to be creative with. And it's like, you need to like your tools. And if there's something that feels really clunky or unuser-friendly for you, then don't use it. There's no need to kind of go with something for something else. And like, we were talking about this on my podcast, which we'll kind of discuss later, but with an Ableton certified trainer, and he was actually talking about Burial, who's an artist, and he's done so well, and he's used Audacity for everything. Like it's quite limited, Audacity, so it doesn't matter. Whatever you feel like using, start there.
Absolutely. And it's probably a good segue, because you mentioned MPW in your podcast, and I did want to find out about this, because this is fascinating, and this is how I actually discovered you. It's weird that you'd lived in Australia for a long time and then moved to London, and we're both sort of circling around the music scene. But I guess it just shows that there's so many people in so many niches here within music that that I'd never heard your music and never seen anything you'd been doing. But it was actually your podcast that you did with Dan G. Harmon over at DistroKid about music distribution. And because I've worked with DistroKid as well in the past, when I was chatting with Dan, he's like, you got to check out this cool podcast by Xylo Aria, and I'm like, I will. And then I discovered the podcast and discovered what you've got going on there. So I'll pop this up here. There's a link down in the description, but why don't you talk us through, because I think it started with the training and the courses, the MPW stuff, and then branched out to the podcast. Why don't you just take us through where that all came from and what's involved?
Yeah, definitely. So I think in some ways, similar to you, Pete, like I was kind of doing or producing my music and looking out into the field. And for me, it was women, but for everyone, I think sometimes production can seem like this really difficult, scary thing that a lot of people are scared to even take their first steps into. And I know that was the case for me. And I feel like sometimes it's overcomplicated in its early stages, that I feel like unnecessarily overcomplicated. So I was like, how can I present production in a way that's really easy to take your first steps? And after that fear of it kind of rolls away, then you can find all of these amazing resources that are online, that you can use to improve your skills. So I created an intro to music production course on Ableton, which just took you through all of the basics that you need to know, and enough of it to be able to get going in your production. And now we're kind of working on a level 2, but that was kind of to get you into your initial steps. And then, and like you said, that just kind of grew and grew into different things. So through that, I met with Ableton in the UK, so now I do a few things with them here as well. And then that kind of took me to other companies and doing a few workshops on different areas of production with them. And then that also grew into the YouTube channel. So the YouTube channel, I just basically wanted a bit more content online of tutorials coming from women, because you never see that. It's just really, really small. And I think it would have helped me as someone, a bit younger, like looking at YouTube, if I saw more people that look similar to me kind of producing. So I just started collecting different tutorials from producers around the world, or female producers, and kind of adding that to our collection to show people that there are the women doing that out there. And then it kind of, someone told me, they were like, oh, you should really have a podcast. And I was like, yeah, I should. Like, it was literally just one conversation. I was like, yeah, actually, this will be fun. And then, I just got to talk to just some incredible people. So it's just so exciting for me, because some of the producers that have worked on like some of my favorite albums, I've been able to talk to them through this podcast, and like, for me, it's just such an incredible feeling. And everyone I speak to, I learn something from. And Pete, you'll be coming on an episode shortly, and I'm sure our audience will get a lot from that. So and that as well with the podcast is just keeping everything simple, which is really the aim of MPW, is not overcomplicating anything, and just kind of giving people the basic knowledge, and all of the knowledge that sometimes you feel like is a silly question and too kind of silly to ask. Just really breaking everything down, and talking to some incredible producers around the world about it.
And it is amazing, the guests you've had on there have been super cool, and I've been listening I've been binge listening to the podcast. If you just go to your favorite podcast place and search MPW, you'll find it. But yeah, some of the people that have been on there, and you had from Focusrite, I think, talking about audio interfaces. I can't remember her name, but that was super fun, just to learn the background of how they actually produce and develop audio interfaces and what goes into that side of things. And then like we say, Dan Harmon over at DistroKid about releasing, and you're covering EQ and compression, and you mentioned it there. But what I love is that this is taking it from the basics. And I think once you become a music producer, creator, it's very easy to forget about some of the questions you had when you started out, to the simple question of, what is EQ? What is equalization? What is an equalizer? Until you sort of work it out and get it in your head that, hey, it's just a volume knob for different frequencies, it's actually a really hard thing to get your head around. And it took me a couple of years. But when you think back now, it's like so easy to just go, oh, just bump up the top end, or just give a little bit more bass. And people are like, that sounds great. How and what and where? So I love that. In the podcast tutorials that you've got over there on your website, which we're looking at there. That is the same sort of thing. It is taking things from the basics, and it's not to be patronizing. It's just to ensure that people actually have the tools. And like you say, that everyone is having these questions, but often people are just too afraid to ask. And I think that's what we sort of share in common, and what inspires me about the sort of stuff you do. It's helping people that may not have that voice, or maybe too scared to ask those questions. You're putting it out there, asking the question for them, and it's very, very good stuff.
Yeah.
Let's jump back to the music, shall we? So your particular music that you create, so using Ableton, you can perform it live, which I guess is one of the benefits of Ableton. The actual
Mhm.
style of music is quite interesting that you actually produce. It's varied in its content. You've done some collaborations with other artists, as you've mentioned, as well as your own stuff. How would you describe your music? If someone says to you, Xylo, what sort of music do you create? What's the genre? What's the vibe and the feel of it? How do you explain it?
Pete, everyone hates this question.
Oh yeah, that's why I asked.
Oh man, putting yourself in a genre is always just the worst question. No, I mean, yeah, it's just so hard to do. But I don't know. I'd say probably like ambient electronic. So you mentioned ambient before. So yeah, it's pretty ambient and electronic. Some people say like bits of R&B, but I don't really know about that. But maybe a little bit. And yeah, I think I naturally kind of bring out some kind of Indian scales in there without really realizing. So maybe like bits of world in there. So yeah, few different things.
No, it's a horrible question. People ask me the same thing, and I'm like, why? Yeah, no, I don't like that. By the way, for the folks who are here live, if you do have any questions for Xylo, we've got about 10 minutes left in the interview here. So if there's any burning questions, anything you want to know about, please do ask. You can also leave a comment. If you're watching on the replay, drop a comment down below. I'll be down there, and I'm sure Xylo will be down and able to answer any questions you have. And of course, while you're there, check out the links to all the places you can follow Xylo on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Check out her music and her EP because it is good stuff. Talking about tools before, Jade here in the chat says the best tool are the ones that work for you. If anyone questions it, then they are the worst tool. Kind of like that.
I love that, Jade. Nice one.
I'm going to use that. I'm going to totally steal that in the future. Let's get back into the nerdy stuff and the technology. So you talked about all the different gear that you use. What would you say is your favorite tool, your favorite hardware, your favorite bit of kit for actually producing music? If there was one thing you couldn't be without, what is it?
Well, as a vocalist, I'm going to pick two. Because, I mean, for me, my mic and my interface are just, I can't do anything without them, like even all of my production, I use my voice so much in so many different ways and like, turning a voice into a synth or something like that. And I don't think I could make music without recording myself. So for me, that is the most important thing. And I still love my Audio Technica AT2020, but I've also got an SE Electronics, I think it's Z5600A, or I think that's it's a beautiful mic. It's just it sounds incredible. But also sometimes I just like, I have an SM57 here, and if I get lazy and I can't be bothered changing mics, I'll just record on that, like whatever mic I have available. I think everything kind of adds a different sound, and sometimes when you're kind of chopping things up and doing weird things with it anyway, it doesn't really matter what you use, and it can add a different flavor to it. And an interface, I used the Focusrite Scarlett range for a while, and they were really good. I like that. Currently, I'm using the Audient ID14, and yeah, really nice sound out of them. And I think it's their, I don't know if it's their very entry level one. It might be, but like for the price range, it has a really good sound. So yeah, I like my ID14, so I'm going to pick those two.
Yeah, okay. No, and that's good. It's really interesting because it's funny when I talk to people who are guitarists, it's usually they're like, I couldn't be without my guitar. When I speak to vocalists, couldn't be without my my microphones. And then if it's electronic producers, they're like, oh, it's got to be my MIDI controller because, and it just it often relates to where you came from, what you started with, and what your primary instrument was when you kicked off. So
definitely.
Yeah, no, really interesting. We got a bunch of questions coming in, and we are short on time, so we're going to do
awesome.
lightning round of questions here. So
all right.
we can jump into here. So we've got one from Tyra. Says, when
Oh,
are you
Tara.
having your next release? That's a very good question.
Oh, Tyra. Oh. Tara's amazing. She's in the MPW community and she's been following my music. So thank you, Tyra. I don't know. I've been working. It's hard, I think, when you are trying to balance, your music. MPW just takes up a lot of my time these days. And unfortunately, sometimes your own music just doesn't get the time it needs. So I'm mixing the last few songs. So I don't know what to tell you, Tyra, but thank you.
Soon.
Shortly.
Yeah. Another question here from Suffering Gift says that getting FaceTime in front of movers and the connected seems harder these days. Any advice? Yeah, everyone's challenged with this. Once you've created the music, how do you actually
good question. Good question. So I would say just put yourself out there. Just get out. Like, go. And I know it's hard. We're living in the world of Corona at the moment, but like, whenever that opens up, like whatever you can get your hands on, like whatever events you can go to, just be in everyone's faces, like without, you don't want to be annoying or anything, but like just kind of show up to as many things as you can. And also, I think networking is just so important, but sometimes people think it as a bad way, like it's like this, you're trying to get something from people. But if you just approach it as making friends with people, it's just such a different thing. And also approach it as not what you can get from someone, but what can you do for them, because there's always something you can do. And even if it's just kind of notice how good a job they're doing. And that's how, I've got a few people on the podcast just from emailing incredible producers and being like, look, you are amazing. And I really, admire your work and I'd love to get half an hour of your time. And you'll be surprised, sometimes people that you think are completely out of your reach, if you send just a nice email, they might get back to you. And so I think it's definitely possible. And, there's also a lot of stuff about music marketing. We're also doing a free class on that this Friday, so a free 1 hour class on music marketing. So if you want to join that, Suffering Gift, if you check out the Music Production for Women Instagram page, it's open for everyone. You'll see it in the link there. So
excellent, really good advice. And people that are viewers of this channel know that I say very much the same things, and it's pretty clear we're on the same page on that. And keep in mind, and I've heard you asked about this before, I haven't asked it specifically because it's pretty evident, but music production for women, anyone can actually obviously listen to the podcast, use the resources, join up. I think because it's focused, because your niche is helping women, it doesn't mean you're not going to help other people as well. So keep that in mind as well. Another quick one here from Russ. What other artists do you draw your influences from, and what music do you listen to most?
I find this question really scary, to be honest. And you know what, like as an artist, I don't really listen to much music. And this is a horrible thing to say. And because I don't know what it is. Like sometimes it feels like work to me, like, because immediately, reading a lot about, mixing and production and stuff, like your brain just sometimes tries to break everything down. And I don't know, maybe you experience this, Pete, or you as well, Russ. I don't know, like immediately I'm like, oh, what have they done with the mix? Like, what are they doing here? What's happening here? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just need to shut my brain off. And so I listen to a lot of classical music because I don't do that with classical music, So like Debussy, I love compositions by Debussy. And I know that's probably not what you were expecting, but other artists that I draw influence from, I really love like Massive Attack, and they're, a bit old school. And I mean, I mentioned James Blake and FKA Twigs and stuff before, but to be honest, I don't know. I think a lot of stuff just comes from me just jamming stuff, just having a play around. Actually, Splice is a good place for inspiration as well. Just finding random samples and being like, "Ooh, this can be a whole song." So
Love it. And it's some people might think that's a strange answer. I totally relate because I listen to
Right.
a lot of classical and a lot of jazz because I'm listening to so much, rock music,
Yeah.
and heavily lyric-based music. And like you say, I do a show every week where I listen for 2 hours of music and do critique it. So it's really hard for me to sit down and listen to music and not go, oh, I don't really like that bass tone. So it is tough. And Debussy, Clair de Lune's my absolute favorite piece of all time. So
Oh, isn't it? Oh, love it.
there with you on the classical stuff, and it's great. It does help your production too, and you can actually concentrate on other things. Classical music's great to have in the background when you're paying the bills and answering emails and things, because you can listen, you can get that part of your brain going while you're still doing other things. We are very quickly running out of time. In fact, we're over time, so I hope you got 5 more minutes here, Xylo, because we've got a couple more questions.
That's fine.
Just to round out. I said at the start, I'm like, Xylo, I'm really big on time, and I make sure we're in 30 minutes, and then here we are.
That's fine, Pete. We're good.
So a couple more here. What would you say is your proudest moment since you started creating music? Is there one particular time or one particular thing that you are most proud of in your journey so far?
To be honest, it's probably like music production for women. Working on that has been so I've got actually a folder that I make, which is like my feel good folder of when people say nice things about MPW, and I've got honestly so many comments in there of like people being so grateful it exists, and being something that they've got so much confidence from, and something that they wish they found earlier, and just being really showing a lot of love for it. And even recently I kind of put out an ad for an assistant platforms, and one of the questions was, why do you want to be part of MPW? And just the answers to that, I was really blown away. Like, for me to think that I kind of launched this platform, and still it's a challenge to run, and sometimes I'm like, gosh, why am I doing this? And to kind of go back to those, and I'm like, wow, actually it's helping, a lot of people, which is what I wanted, which sometimes you can forget and lose sight of. But that's it for me.
That's not surprising, but really good to hear. And it is reinforcing when you're trying to do good, and then you do get positive comments, and especially when it's things like you say there, where it's people that will say, and I'm sure you get the same sort of thing, where they say, I wouldn't have been able to produce music if it wasn't for the help you provided. And it's like, I didn't do anything. It makes you feel a little bit awkward at times, because you're like, I'm just doing my thing over here, and it's all you. Like, it's all the person being able to do it. But being able to provide that platform such as MPW for people to feel safe and secure, and able to actually ask questions and learn and develop themselves is pretty darn amazing. So great work there. We are at the last question I like to ask, and it is this one. What is the one piece of advice you would pass on to someone starting out in home recording?
Good question. I would say, and it's sounds like a bit of a cop-out answer, but like, just don't be scared to, like, you're not going to break anything, like, just go nuts. Like, if you find things that you don't know what they do, just press them, see what happens, and like, just whatever. Especially, I think, when we approach everything as like, right, I'm going to sit down and make the next hit single, it's like, oh my gosh, so much pressure. But if you just sit down and be like, you know what, I'm just gonna have some fun and learn something new, like, find something you don't know about, do some research, and just be like, all right, I'm gonna use this new technique that I found just to do something. And then often those kind of end up being projects that you might like more than when you actually sat down to make this incredible single that has just put so much pressure on you. So just don't be scared and enjoy the process, really.
Love it. Similar advice that we hear from most people, and I hope we're about 30 episodes into this series, and we've had a lot of people sharing very similar things, and I'm hoping that it's resonating with a lot of folks. If you have the fear, and if you're just thinking, oh, I don't know where to start, just start. As Xylo says, start pushing buttons, breaking. You can't break it that badly, and if you break it, well, you just reinstall it and try again.
Exactly.
nothing you can do that's going to cause permanent damage unless don't plug something in and turn your speakers up too loud because you can actually blow them.
Yes.
But apart from that, then you're absolutely fine. This has been awesome. So thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure that viewers here have got a lot of value out of what you've had to say. And why don't you finish up by letting us know where folks can check out your music and all the work you do with MPW.
Sure. It's been a pleasure, Pete. Firstly, thank you so much for having me. And my music you can find anywhere under Xylo Aria, so Spotify, iTunes, whatever you listen to music on. So it's Xylo Aria. So like xylophone and aria. Oh, you've got it there anyway. But so you can find it anywhere. And MPW, the podcast, if you just put in MPW podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, it will come up as well. We do lots of giveaways and stuff. So if you follow our social medias, you'll hear all about that. So just Music Production for Women. So at Music Production for Women on Instagram. And Instagram's probably better than Facebook anyway. Come say hi. And if you have any questions or anything about Ableton or whatever, then please feel free to get in touch. And musicproductionforwomen.com, you'll see how to get in touch with me there if you want to do that as well.
Excellent.
So,
great stuff.
Cool.
And we've made it very easy for you because all of the links that Xylo just mentioned are right down in the description. And I can't
nice one, Pete.
But when you win an Aria award, Xylo, that's going to be super fun to see you on stage. The Aria goes to Xylo Aria. Okay. Cool.
It'll happen, Pete.
For those out of Australia, that's our record industry. That's our Grammy, the Australian Record Industry Association Awards. So, when Xylo Aria wins an Aria, you'll be the first to know. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Please check out the links down below. Folks, on behalf of my guest today, Xylo Aria, we would like to say goodbye and see you now. Remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and keep creating. Cheers, folks.